All right. At this time, the Finance Committee brings the transfer that we just looked at. County Council in the form of a motion, needing no second. All in favor of what they just looked at? Signify by raising your right hand. Let the record show that all council members here and Mr. Dunn are in favor, and Mr. Dunn's not here. Okay. And then, do we have any more discussion about the?
Yeah. Well, at the conclusion of this portion of the Finance Committee, to be prepared to make these recommendations tonight, the Finance Committee then continued the discussion of the administrator's fiscal year 16 budget, beginning to look cost center by cost center. I apologize that we were not able to complete that task. We hope that very shortly we will be able to have another Finance Committee meeting and be able to finish the third walkthrough. The Finance Committee, to some degree, has a different approach because we've been basically tasked with doing this function. We did not self-appoint ourselves to do this, but keeping in mind that the process, as I understand it, for the last 5 years of being on council, or 4.5, whatever it is each cost center manager makes their recommendation to the county administrator. The county administrator then, in his wisdom, gleams through all the items that staff have requested and then compiles them in this thing that we just passed tonight called the administrator's recommended draft proposal. And so consequently, in a prior life before I came on council, I was in government for 16 years. I've never seen a cost center manager ask seldom for less money. They always want more money. We are tasked, secondly, with the fact that in general, citizens would prefer not to have a 2% raise. I mean 2%, a 2 mil tax increase. So we will be gleaming the budget very carefully to see how we can accommodate what the administrator wants and what we can do to control the increase in millage. Obviously, the recommendation from the Finance Committee, as always, is subject to approval of full council, as always. So these are just, for the lack of a better word, a little better than warm suggestions because we will have gone through and debated to some degree the items. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, and this concludes the Finance Committee's report to you. Thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you, sir. And the next on the agenda is Resolution R 2015-022, a resolution expressing county consent to continue maintenance of George Brock Road designated C-17-0051 and other matters related thereto. Holt, appreciate you being there.
Mr. Chairman, I have a presentation if I need it, but I just have the map and stuff like that. But you've seen a lot of information tonight, right, and you have everything in the packet that we have. I do need to clear up something. Somebody had to go on vacation last week, and we wasn't able to put the final touches on the resolution. You were handed, I think, tonight the resolution that you'll be voting on. Just so I'm clear on some of the changes we made, if you vote yes, then you are voting in favor of closing the road. If you vote no, you're voting in favor of keeping it open. Okay.
Can I get things in order? I think I need to bring this up as a motion, and it need to be second, didn't it? Is that correct? Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a second. Well,
Uh, uh,
doesn't look like you need to even come up and explain. Okay, showing that there was not a second, then that was not even brought up before
Wait a
council.
minute. Question. I thought he had a resolution. It says a resolution expressing county consent.
But it was brought up as a motion, but it never was seconded, so we don't even,
We never even heard the resolution.
I read it to you. I read yeah, so it was brought up as a motion, but then it never, is that correct? Am I correct?
I never heard it.
I did not hear a second to the motion. Mr.
I didn't hear a second either, so we don't talk about it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So would you explain that, how that works?
May I have a do-over on this thing, please? Because I didn't know you were calling for the vote. It says here.
There never was a vote.
Okay, you says here a resolution expressing county consent. All right. When did you? What was the resolution you read? You read it just then?
Yes, ma'am. And then there was a motion made, but it never was second, so it doesn't even come to council. You have to second it before you even talk about it.
Well, I know that now, but anyway, I'd like to go back because now that I understand, I want to second it.
Okay, so
Mr. Chairman, may I withdraw my motion, please?
there never was a motion.
That never was a resolution. Go ahead and hear that.
So now that there's never been a motion, there's nothing to second. Is that correct?
There would be nothing on the floor to second. That is correct, Mr. Chairman, but you can entertain
Okay,
another motion.
can we go back and start over and then, okay? Resolution number R 2015-022, a resolution expressing county consent to continue maintenance of George Brock Road designated C-17-0051 and other matters related thereto.
Okay, that's the resolution now. We don't have a resolution here to read to us or nothing like that. This
No,
is
ma'am.
the resolution.
That's it.
Okay, now, we're going to,
Somebody has to make a motion before we can even talk about it.
make a motion.
Let's make a motion and I'll explain it. If nothing else, if I can get a second.
And I'll second it
Okay,
now.
Okay.
we have a motion and it has been seconded, so now, are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend this resolution to the county staying neutral and county and county council remain neutral on this and let the courts decide which way to go.
Second.
Okay, we have a we have an amendment, we have a second, so we need to vote on the amendment now. Is that
Mr.
correct,
Chairman.
Mr.?
You have to call for
May
the
I?
question too.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
the resolution that's in my packet says a resolution expressing county consent to continue maintenance. I was handed another resolution that says a resolution expressing county consent to judicial abandonment. So which was the real resolution?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
what I was talking about. This
Okay.
is the resolution that was not read.
All right.
Now
Now we got the resolution.
we have the resolution.
Okay, now we have an amendment to the resolution.
Okay, but the
saying that-
resolution needs to be read.
We can do that.
For the records, yeah.
Can do that for the record, yes, ma'am. All right, a resolution expressing county consent to judicial abandonment of George Brock Road designated C-17-0051 and other matters related thereto, whereas George Brock Road designated C-17-0051, the road, is currently a paved Anderson County public road, whereas the road in question is shown on the map prepared by Anderson County Roads and Bridges Engineering Department on April 1, 2015, attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference, whereas the adjoining landowners have requested the Anderson County abandonment of the road in order to ensure unsolicited traffic. The petition is attached hereto as Exhibit B and incorporated herein by reference, whereas Anderson County Fire Protection Commission has expressed the position that closure of the road will impact emergency vehicle response to citizens and in the area, and or opposes the closure of the road, the letter is attached hereto as Exhibit C and incorporated herein by references. Whereas, with respect to the road, Anderson County has complied with its ordinances and regulations pertaining to the abandonment and closures of Anderson County public roads. Whereas, Anderson County, South Carolina, a body politic and corporate and a political subdivision of the state of South Carolina, acting by and through its county council, desires to express its intent to continue maintenance of the road. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Anderson County Council in meeting duly assembled that Anderson County, acting by through its county council, hereby states that Anderson County Council consents to the closure and judicial abandonment of George Brock Road designated as C-17-0051. All orders and resolutions in conflict herewith are to extent of such conflict only repealed and rescinded. And then,
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am?
my resolution reads, Anderson County, acting by and through county council, hereby states that Anderson County consents to continue maintenance of George Brock Road designated as C-17, and that's what it says in the agenda as well. The one you just read says closed, and I didn't get that one. I don't have that one.
Okay.
Mr.
We'll
Chairman,
give it to
may I?
us tonight.
Because there's confusion here, and what's in our packet appears to be totally different from what you've just read that
Yes, ma'am.
was at my seat, I'm very concerned that we may possibly be in violation of FOIA and notification of the press because it clearly stated consent to continue maintenance. And we've had so much dissent. We've had very strong arguments to both close the road and to keep the road open. I would like to make the motion that we table this till we get what we're actually voting on. And I want to go out there. I've driven down the road, but years ago, I didn't realize that there was such an issue. I'd like to make a motion to table, please.
Okay. We got to go back to the amendment. Is that correct?
No, you can take up the motion to table at this point.
Okay. All right. So we don't have to do anything else. Is that correct? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor now to table this resolution. Do I have a second?
Okay, the motion to table fails for lack of a second.
Okay.
Now you go back to Mr. Cole's amendment, proposed amendment to the resolution.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the issue here is we've got two different resolutions on the table.
Yeah.
One saying the county discontinue maintenance and one saying continue.
And Mr. Chairman, I accept responsibility for that. We tried to make some last minute changes and we shouldn't. But the one you read is sufficient as long as you understand how you're voting.
How we're voting. That's correct. So
The one you read was the one that was actually publicized. So you could still go with that version. It was just marked draft in the packet. But you can go with that version if you're okay with it, especially with an amendment to it. So
now the amendment is that the county takes a neutral stand on this issue. Is that correct?
That's the
That is
amendment.
correct.
Yes.
Yes.
That is
Okay.
The amendment, as I heard Mr. Cole state it, was that the county remain neutral and allow the court to decide whether to close the road.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I'm sorry.
Ms. Wilson?
We have been down this road, pardon the pun, several times before, and it is extraordinarily nerve-wracking because, for example, Lewis Drive, that road was closed without going through judicial abandonment. Children were left on the side of the road. Buses couldn't get down that road. It was closed down at 7 a.m. We had all the EMS and fire people, all the public safety people saying, don't close it. We've had to go to court. It's a total nightmare. Then we had another road that initially, hearing the complaints from the landowners, indicated that it would be a wise thing to close it. But then when we had a community meeting, we heard the rest of the story, and it was not pretty. We had just spent $35,000 replacing a culvert on that road. It did go to judicial abandonment, and it was closed. I think we need to totally rework our road closing process and requirements, because if we're gonna look out for the taxpayers and the public safety issues in our county, don't you think we should have a very clear, methodical process so that we don't have these questions and, wonder if we're making the correct decision? Because some of these roads have cost the county a lot of money over the years to build and maintain and repave. I think we also need, when we come up with a proper process, we need to have requirements in there, a whole list of requirements of what we require to consider closing the road. And included in that would be the cost, the depreciated value of that road. I'm just very uncomfortable doing anything right now, one way or the other, on this particular one. And I think both sides made compelling points. It's just a very difficult situation, and I'm hoping that maybe Mr. Harmon will have time in the next few weeks to come up with a better way to do this. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, do we?
I understand.
Thank you.
Chairman,
All right, does anyone have anything else?
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have always closed roads on Anderson County. Roads have been coming to us for years with the possibility of closing them. This is nothing new. I only heard one person tonight speak against it. All right, the phone calls I've been getting and everything else have been for it. People are here tonight because they want a decision. To say leave it to the courts, that's not the way we work. This is a county road. We have to make the decision whether or not we're going to leave it open or we're going to close it. It still goes to the courts, however, but that decision belongs to us. We can't run away from a decision like that. Now, I know that we've got people that we want to please on both sides, but you can't please everybody. And each of us were elected to make the hard decisions. You have gotten all the information. You have heard from different people. I mean, it's time now to let's go ahead and vote and let's lay this thing to rest. This doesn't need to go on. This doesn't need to go on and on and on like the last one we had. That was the last one was the first time we ever had that much trouble closing the road. Roads have been closed in my district. Mr. Hopkins, don't we have guidelines and requirements and instruction for closing roads already? Okay. Okay, all right, so we already have those guidelines and ordinances in place, right? I think we need to take a stand. Are we going to close it? Yes. Are we not going to close it? No. If we vote on this one, we have to vote no. Right?
No, ma'am, we have to vote on the amendment we have on the floor.
No. I'm talking about what he just told us about yes and no and all that.
Is that correct? We have to vote on the amendment?
Yes, you will have to take up the amendment first.
That's right, we'll have to take the
There
amendment
is an
first.
amendment.
And then we would
a
go back and vote
second.
on that.
Yeah,
On
if
the
the
floor.
amendment doesn't pass.
Okay. Okay, at this time, all in favor for Mr. Cole's amendment, signify by raising your right hand. Okay, all those opposed? And those abstain? And the motion passes. Mr. Allen, Mr. Waters, Mr. Cole, and Mr. Crowder, showing that Ms. Wilson abstained and Ms. Floyd was opposed.
We have shirked our duties.
All right, thank you. All right, and the next thing, do we need to go on executive?
No.
We do not.
You need to
We need
go
to vote
back-
on the, I'm sorry, you're right.
You're going to have to now go back and vote on the motion with the amendment as the amendment was passed.
Okay, so now we'll be voting on the resolution with the amendment that the county takes no stand in for or against. Is that correct?
That's correct. With-
Okay.
With the motion, with the amendment that Mr. Cole proposed.
Okay,
Make a motion.
okay, and do we have a second? All right?
I don't understand what I'm voting on.
Okay. All right. What we're voting on is the amendment, both of them. The county is taking no stand either way to close it or not close it. We're going to let the courts make the decision on it.
For us.
That's correct.
Okay, so now what are we voting for now, though?
Ms. Floyd, what you're voting on now is the resolution with the amendment that was passed. So the resolution will be redrafted to reflect Mr. Cole's amendment, which was that the county take a neutral position on the closure of the road and allow the court to decide whether or not to close the road.
I thought we just voted that we were going to allow the courts to do it. We wasn't going to vote on it ourselves. I thought we just.
That was the amendment.
That was the amendment. But
Okay.
now you have to go back and vote on the original motion that was placed on the floor
Okay.
and seconded prior to the time the amendment was made.
Okay.
Okay, now, listen, let me just go ahead and say it. Okay, so you can help me determine just how, am I voting yes or no here, okay? I think that we ought to go ahead and vote for it. District 2 was prepared to go ahead and leave that road open. Now, how do I vote on this, yes or no?
What you will be voting on, if you vote yes, would be for this resolution to read that the county take a neutral position and allow the court to decide whether or not to close the road. If you vote no, then you vote against the resolution with that amendment in it. So the question is, on the floor, is whether or not to pass the resolution with the amendment in the resolution. That's what you will be voting on now.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, may I make a clarification? In our packet, there was a list with 17 people opposed. There were 5 who stood up tonight and opposed it. There was one person who spoke very compellingly for closing it. There were other backup materials, so you had quite a few people who said no and one who said yes, so that does need to be factored in.
Okay.
Mr.
Now,
Chair.
to get back to the original resolution with the amendment, are we ready, Mr.
I
Carr?
just a real quick comment so everybody understands. We could take a vote on it, and according to the people that spoke tonight, the majority of folks want it kept open. But to officially close it, it has to be done by the court, okay? It doesn't really matter what we say. We might have some influence a little bit on the court, but the court's the one that's got to have the final say. So we could say yes, the court could say no, or vice versa. But just so that's clear, it has to be done by a court. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any more questions? Okay, so at this time, we'll be taking on a vote for the resolution with Mr. Cole's amendment that the county takes a neutral stand on the resolution 2015-02. All in favor of that resolution with the amendment, signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, signify by raising your hand. All right, and abstaining. Okay, let the record show that Mr. Allen, Mr. Waters, Mr. Cole, and Mr. Crowder voted in favor of the resolution with the amendment. Mrs. Floyd was opposed of that, and all right, quiet down back there. We're still in meeting. And show that Ms. Wilson abstained. All right, moving on to the next. Do we need to have a economic development? Okay, and then requests by councils. Mr. Allen, do you have any requests at this time?
None at this time. I'm basically broke right now.
I understand. And Ms. Floyd, do you have any?
Yes, I do. I have some allocations to make from District 2's recreational fund, okay? This concerns the programs that I talked with you about earlier. On the YMCA, District 2 would like to allocate $2,500 for the camping scholarship.
Okay.
May I do it all at one time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The next one is for New Foundation. I'm sure all of us know what New Foundation is. They are seeking money also for the summer and recreational programs for their children. Okay. District 2 allocates $1,000. All right. Men at Work. You have that at your desk. I'll pass that to you. Men at Work would like an allocation of $1,000 from the District 2 Rec Fund to take their children, to take the little kids to the Black Cowboy Rodeo. This is something they've gone to every year, and the little kids really enjoy that. That's a total of $4,500 from District 2's Recreational Fund. I put that in form of a motion.
All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. And all those, everyone here, including Mr. Dunn, who's not here, in favor of that. And Mr. Cole, do you have any?
Not this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Crabbe, do you have any?
No, sir, not at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Ms. Wilson, you got that pitiful look. Okay. And District 6, I'd like to appropriate $5,000 to the Powdersville Youth Association, and I bring that in the form of. Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. And all of those, let the record show that everyone here voted in favor of that, and Mr. Dunn is not here. Okay, and the next thing, the administrator's report.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, citizens' comments.
Mr. Chairman, one citizen is signed up, Elizabeth Fan.
All right.
Too much to talk on tonight. I do want to know under the administrator's report B, records retention. I think that needs to be talked about, whatever that means. Are we destroying records or are we keeping them or what? So Mr. Burns, I'll ask that afterwards. I get a little brochure, The Insider, from the South Carolina Policy Council, and very briefly I'm going to try to read some excerpts here. It's talking about what's wrong with South Carolina. I'm willing to say that the Policy Council is one of the most important forces for good in South Carolina. The simple reason is that none of our opinions about the education, healthcare, conservation, or economic development matter as long as our government is riddled with corruption. South Carolina is unsurpassed in the iron grip that a few politicians have on everything from road building to hospital beds. Challenging the power structure in South Carolina can be the equivalent of political suicide. Anyone who has spent much time in Columbia can tell you how afraid representatives and senators are of breaking out of the pack. The fear of retaliation is completely justified. One of the things that Policy Council did that was very good was insist on roll call voting. It was the beginning of a revolution, and it was bitterly opposed by the power brokers. The legislature may pass an anti-corruption bill that actually protects citizens from insider dealings shrouded in secrecy. The truth is that the processes of the government are vitally important to every South Carolinian. They are where the rubber hits the road, and in the case of transportation, where the actual rubber hits the actual road. South Carolina's transportation funding agenda is a farce. Conventional wisdom says that the reason for these deficiencies is that our gas tax is too low. But conventional wisdom doesn't understand the way that transportation decisions are made in South Carolina. We have not one, but two transportation commissions. The one most people are familiar with is the South Carolina DOT, Department of Transportation. But the one with the real money, billions of dollars, is called the South Carolina State Transportation Infrastructure Bank. Concentration of the power plaguing the state, the majority of that money is appointed by two people. One is the President Pro Tem Hugh Leatherman, the other a member of the House, the Speaker Bobby Harrell. Collectively, they represent less than 3% of the voters in the state, but they control the state's entire road funding system. Folks, are you understanding that? Last month, the DOT released a report asserting that the state faces a $42 billion shortfall on transportation funding over the coming 45.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll have remarks from council. Ms. Wilson, are you ready?
Caught me off guard. There's so much more that has to be done to bring our budget into balance, and we have a lot of work and a lot of answers and questions and balancing things out to do. And I'm very serious about the road situation. I hope we can come up with a better method that makes sense and it's not so hard to follow. Thank you.
Mr. Crowder?
Mr. Chairman, none, thank you.
Mr. Cole?
Nothing this time.
Ms. Floyd, do you have any?
Yes, I do. I received tonight at my desk a job advertisement for wastewater management. Now, I know that position was in the budget for next year. Is this the same position, Mr. Burns? Okay, because I know that this department asked for a technician and a manager, a wastewater manager, in the budget. So he's going to have 2 wastewater management managers? Okay, all right. Okay, well, I'd like to know that because I know that wastewater did ask for a wastewater manager and a technician in the budget. And here he is asking for another one, the same thing. I want to know if this is not, how can this be advertised? We haven't even finished the budget yet. That's what I want to know. Okay. Thank you. I want to ask now about the budget workshop.
I have that when we get done.
We gonna, okay.
Yes, ma'am. I have that.
Mm-hmm. All right. I want to say that I think that the council should have been asked from the beginning if they wanted the budget to go into the finance committee. The chairman's position is a ceremonial position. In other words, he's supposed to direct the meeting stuff. He does not issue orders telling folks what to do without going through the council first. And that wasn't done. So, you know, I have met with attorneys, with the attorney, and I'm waiting on a decision whether or not that was the right thing to do. A lot of the times I found that we don't read the ordinance book. If you read the ordinances in the book, you would understand different things that that gives us guidelines on what to do. But that one, there were several things I met with the attorney about, but I sure would like to hear from the attorney about it, you know, soon, which way we're going. Also, there are some of you that when I had the meeting, I missed you. I just knew that some of you minded citizens would be there because you have shown interest in the past. But it really disappointed me that you didn't show up because, I mean, it was telling me that what I was doing wasn't interesting enough, or wasn't worthwhile enough, that you'd rather sit there and go through a long finance thing where you didn't have a right to say anything. In my meeting, you could have spoken. You could have asked questions in the meeting that I had. And that's all I have, and I sure do thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Allen?
Yeah, just very briefly, and I guess you're going to talk about the upcoming budget workshop, but
Yep.
I know it was mentioned tonight in the budget that the county administrators presented it would require a $2 million increase in order to make that budget happen. I would not vote for that. I don't think that will pass, and that's why this thing's going to be pared down quite a bit. So that was all I had to say about it.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, just to go ahead and touch on the this Friday at 2 o'clock, there'll be a budget workshop, and then a separate meeting at 3:30, a special call meeting Friday at 3:30. And so those are two points of information.
Okay, do that again. Friday at what?
Okay, Friday, a budget workshop at 2 o'clock.
That's on a Friday at 2 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am. What's that date? That would be the 8th. That'll be the 8th, okay?
And the special call meeting concerns what?
And the special call meeting will be at 3:30,
Concerning,
economic development.
okay. At
3:30 on Friday afternoon.
That's a short meeting for 2 o'clock to 3:30.
Yep. All right, and I'd just like to reiterate, everything that we do here, it goes through council, and we do that, and this has been, just as Ms. Floyd said, she had some meetings, so if anybody wants to come to these things, we don't try to hide anything. The budget's out there. Everybody can see it. As Mr. Allen said, he hadn't fell out over there, has he? Okay. As he had said, this budget did show that, but I agree with him. There probably won't be anybody vote for that. We've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work in action right now, and appreciate everyone putting the hard work in. The finance committee's put a lot of long hours in this, and I think everybody has. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the meeting for May the 4th, 2015. Thank you. Thank you, sir.